I'm currently doing some front suspension work on a couple of my Mercedes. You know, I've got the W126 300 SD up on the lift, and we've been replacing some joints. I've got my W123 300D behind me, and they both have a similar problem. In fact, this problem is probably one of the most common problems you'll find on these older Mercedes from the early 70s up to the early 90s, and that is steering box play. You can replace all the front suspension parts you want, but that car is never going to feel like factory new until you do something about the steering box. Now this 300D here has about 1.5 inches of play going side to side until it actually engages the tie rods. So you go down the road, you know, and the car drives fine, but you get that movement in the steering wheel, particularly if it's not aligned right. Then you're like driving like this the whole time. I finally decided I was just going to have to do something about the steering boxes on my own car. So when you look at a steering box replacement, forget about used. Just forget about it. You can go on eBay and see these used steering boxes. Don't waste your money. I mean, they're going to be worn out like all the others, particularly if they've got over 150,000 miles on them. I've done a couple videos on why I think they prematurely wear out on these early steering boxes. I'll put a link in the description below this video and you can watch those, but I'm not going to deal with that in this video. I'm also not going to deal with how to install a steering box. I'm just going to talk about a couple challenges you're going to run into and a couple things you may have to do or prepare to do if you're going to replace one of these steering boxes on your own. I know some of you might be thinking, well, Kent, why don't you just adjust the play out? There is an adjustment on these steering boxes. That's the adjustment screw right here. But I've been around these Mercedes long enough to know that when you see an adjustment screw like this one, that's almost all the way out, adjusting it is not going to help. What happens is you'll be able to get it snug in the center, but when you go out to the sides, it'll bind because it's excessively worn. So adjustment on these high mileage steering boxes, it just does not work, okay? So we forget about the adjustment, and I went ahead and ordered up a rebuilt steering box. This is for the W126. And when you pull it out of the box, you're going to find out it's missing some stuff that you're going to have to pull off your old steering box. The first thing, of course, is this Pitman arm here. It does not come with a Pitman arm. You'll have to pull this Pitman arm off, follow the instructions to properly replace it. You can't just stick it on there. I'm not going to explain this. Just Google it. You can't take the Pitman arm and just stick it on there. You have to go through a alignment and centering procedure so that you get the Pitman arm on in the right position. The other thing, it does not come with the two fittings for the power steering hoses. See that? That's just plugged. So you're going to have to pull these fittings off, and it also does not come with a rubber coupler. Now you can see right now this steering box, if I move the rubber coupler, you can see how much it's moving, and the Pitman arm's not moving. So that's quite a bit of play when it's transferred to the steering wheel itself. So I'm going to have to get those parts off. Of course, you'll have the bolts that you'll have to reuse that goes through the subframe to bolt this up inside underneath the fender. So replacing these fittings and replacing the coupler are fairly straightforward, but getting this Pitman arm off is not. And that's the main purpose of this video. I just wanted to alert you to what you're going to have to deal with if you want to replace the steering box. This is on there really tight. I mean, you can't believe how hard it is to get off unless you're going to have a big socket in the first place, big 3/4 inch drive socket. You'd need a 3/4 inch impact to get that thing off. So most of you won't have that big socket. But the other thing is you're going to probably need a puller that gets in behind here, right here, and most of you probably won't have a puller. Well, I'm just going to give you a little tip. You could take this to a Les Schwab front end shop and ask them to just remove the Pitman arm. They have all the right equipment. They'll do it in just a few minutes, and they won't charge you very much, okay? So that's what I'm going to recommend. I'm not going to show you how to remove this. Maybe you can find the information. If you have a shop that has the right equipment, including some heat, because you may have to apply heat to get this off, particularly if it's rusty, then go ahead. But if you're the average DIY mechanic working out of his home garage, just take the steering box down to a front end shop and say, can you please remove the Pitman arm? And then you can bring it back, Find out the information you need to do the centering procedure to get the Pitman arm in the right position and the proper torque to do it. So this is my tip of the day. If you have an old Benz that's got sloppy steering, your best solution is a rebuilt steering box. And it is possible to do yourself, but it's going to take some homework.